Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the AEW Dynamite review. Dynamite is back on Wednesday nights. Tonight was their first show back on Wednesday, and I'm really happy about that. But the show tonight, I thought it was a good show. I really enjoyed Dynamite tonight, aside from one match, which you all know the match that I'm talking about because I explained it. And I'll get to explaining that match, but you all know which match it is. But this was Dynamite's last show in the Daily's Place for this whole pandemic era of shows. They will be returning to Daily's Place on August 4th. And I'm like, aren't we tired of seeing the Daily's Place? I mean, they're going to go back to Daily's Place the first week of August. And I'm like, should have went, somewhere else though. I mean, we had this whole pandemic of shows from the Daily's Place. And only we're going to be seeing it again come August 4th. So don't get me wrong, the Daily's Place is a nice venue for Dynamite. I really like these pandemic shows originating from the Daily's Place. But I think it's about time we move from the Daily's Place, because next week it's going to be Road Rager. They're going to be in Miami. So I'm really looking forward to Road Rager next week. But on tonight's show, we saw Eddie Kingston and Penta El Miedo versus the Young Bucks. If Kingston and Penta won the match, they earn a future World Tag Team title shot against the Young Bucks. So we saw that tonight. We saw Jungle Boy versus Jack Evans of the Hybrid 2. The TNT Championship was on the line, where Miro defended the title against Brian Pillman Jr. We saw in the main event MJF versus Sammy Guevara, and Britt Baker and Rebel versus Nyla Rose and Vickie Guerrero. Overall, Dynamite, like I said, was a good show tonight. I really enjoyed it. But let's get on with the Dynamite review. So Dynamite kicked off tonight with Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho ended up coming out, and he was on commentary for the show, which is always great to hear Jericho on commentary. Love when he does commentary along with Tony Schiavone, Jim Ross, and Excalibur. He just brings more energy to the show. So it's good hearing Jericho on commentary throughout the night tonight. And then we had Eddie Kingston and Penta El Miedo versus the Young Bucks. This was, of course, non-title match. If Eddie Kingston and Penta won the match, they will earn a future shot at the tag team titles against the Young Bucks. So Eddie Kingston and Penta El Miedo came out with Alex Abrahantes. And then the Young Bucks came out along with Brandon Cutler. Or I shouldn't say the Young Bucks tonight. I should say that they are the Porn Bucks. Yes. So when the Bucks end up coming out, I was like, what the fuck is this? The Bucks came out. They have facial hair on them now. They look like they just got finished doing a porno film. And that's what Tony Schiavone on commentary ended up saying. They look like a couple of porn stars. I swear. Go back and watch the video when they came out tonight, if you could find it. They look like they just came from doing a porno film. But it was funny, though. But wasn't expecting the Bucks to have, facial hair, growing it out. But this was a good match here. Eddie Kingston started off the match, did an early pin attempt on Matt Jackson. Matt Jackson kicked out at 2. Penta delivered a nice drop kick off the second rope to the backside of Matt Jackson. Kingston ended up going for another pin, and Matt Jackson ended up kicking out 2. Matt Jackson was able to back Penta into the corner. Nick Jackson came in, and him and Matt ended up doing moves on Penta. So Matt ended up working on Penta. Then they both end up out on the floor. Penta ended up hitting a nice tilt-a-whirl backbreaker out on the floor to Matt Jackson. So Penta went to the top rope. He delivered a nice diving crossbody to Nick Jackson. So he then tagged in Eddie Kingston. Eddie Kingston was landing punches to Nick Jackson. And he delivered a spinning power slam to Nick Jackson. He went for the cover, which Nick ended up kicking out too. So the Bucks end up regaining control on the floor because they end up taking out Eddie Kingston. Nick Jackson then threw Eddie Kingston back into the ring, and he went for a cover, which Kingston kicked out at 1. So Matt and Nick end up keeping Eddie Kingston grounded on the mat. So at the end of the match, Frankie Kazarian ended up showing up because the Good Brothers came out. They distracted the referee. Brandon Cutler ended up trying to do the cold spray to Penta, but Penta moved out of the way, and Cutler ended up getting Matt instead with the spray. Frankie Kazarian ended up showing up, and he ended up taking care of Brandon Cutler. Penta delivered a dive, and then he ended up hitting the Fear Factor on Matt, and then Eddie Kingston came in, delivered a spinning back fist, and he went for the cover. And there you go. Eddie Kingston and Penta won the match. So now Kingston and Penta will earn a future shot at the tag team titles. But overall, this was a good match. I think this is the first match that the Bucks end up losing in a year. So there you go. Penta and Eddie Kingston will earn a future shot at the tag team titles. Then we had Christian Cage. Christian Cage ended up telling Jungle Boy that he's proud of him and that he took Kenny Omega to the brink. Christian went on to say that he believes Jungle Boy will be a champion someday. And after the match that we saw on Saturday night, Jungle Boy will be a future world champion whenever that day comes. So, I mean, the match that he had with Kenny Omega on Saturday night on that Dynamite was an awesome match. And it made you believe that Jungle Boy was going to beat Kenny Omega. There were certain points in that match where, like, oh, is Jungle Boy going to actually beat Kenny Omega? Because they teased it a little bit. But then Kenny Omega, of course, won the match. But Kenny Omega, he's not losing the World Championship anytime soon. He's going to have a very lengthy run with the World Championship. But Jungle Boy, he will be World Champion someday, whenever that day comes. And whenever that day comes, people and fans are going to love it. They're going to love when Jungle Boy finally gets his hands and wins the World Championship. But Christian ended up telling Jungle Boy to go out and get his 50 wins. So we saw Luchasaurus and Marco Stunt. They ended up showing up. Luchasaurus ended up thanking Christian for having Jungle Boy's back. And he was like, going forward, he'll have Christian's back. So Christian ended up joking about having some dinosaur genes on his mother's side. So that was that. But Christian, believing in Jungle Boy, he's proud of him in his match with Kenny Omega that we saw Saturday night on Dynamite. And then we had Tony Schiavone. Tony Schiavone was in the ring with Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky. Tony ended up bringing up Ethan Page challenging Darby Allin to a coffin match. and he was asking Paige, "Oh, why did you choose a coffin match with Darby Allin?" So Paige ended up saying to Shivani, what he's been doing to Darby Allin is not enough, and that his goal is to exterminate Darby Allin. He wants to say that he's trying to cripple Darby Allin on the indies and in AEW, and that's clearly not enough. So we heard what chants from the crowd there. They were what chanting Ethan Page. Page ended up saying that every time Darby Allin does a coffin drop going forward, he's going to think of Page. So Sting ended up heading out. He ended up pulling a coffin behind him. And we go to a video of Darby Allin. And Darby Allin was using a flamethrower on the coffin. So it was a nice little video there with Darby Allin using the flamethrower. Really liked how the way it was filmed. So then Sting then pulled the blanket, and Darby Allin jumped out of the coffin. Yeah, Sting had a coffin underneath the blanket, and out jumped Darby Allin. So he jumped out of the coffin. Darby Allin ended up leaping into the ring. He went after Ethan Page. Sting ended up taking care of Scorpio Sky. Darby Allin was actually digging his fingernails into Ethan Page's eyes while Ethan Page was screaming in pain from that. So Ethan Page ended up getting out of the ring, had officials end up helping him. So Darby Allin ended up getting on the mic, and he ended up saying, of course he'd do that to Page. Darby Allin ended up saying that he knows that he can beat Page at 100%. So Page then ended up saying that his match against Darby Allin is off next week. Page wanted to say that Darby Allin has to sign papers that he can't touch him the week before. And if he's good, maybe they can have a match at Fyter Fest. So there you go. The coffin match is off for next week. It would have been good to see it. Darby Allin, he is one of my favorites, and the guy is just talented. The guy is so over with the crowd. I really enjoyed the time when he was the TNT champion, because he really deserved to hold that title. So the guy is just very talented. So he's one of my favorites. He's probably in my top 5 favorites of AEW stars. And then we had Jack Evans versus Jungle Boy. Jungle Boy coming off the match that we saw last Saturday with Kenny Omega. Goes into this match this week with Jack Evans. So if Jungle Boy end up winning the match tonight, it will be his 50th win. And he will be the first AEW wrestler to reach that number. So this was a decent match here. So we had Jack Evans end up delivering a shot to Jungle Boy's ribs. Jungle Boy was able to leap up to the top and deliver an arm drag and a kip up. Jungle Boy was able to gain control of the match. He ended up locking in the snare trap to Jack Evans, and he made Jack Evans tap out. So there you go. Jungle Boy ended up winning the match, making this his 50th win. So it's good. That's good on Jungle Boy there. So really happy for Jungle Boy. So post-match, we had the Hardy family office and the Jurassic Express end up hitting the ring. Matt Hardy and Christian end up battling in the ring while Marco Stunt and Luchasaurus end up taking care of Mark Gwen and Isaiah Cassidy. So Christian and Matt Hardy were in the ring. Christian delivered the kill switch to Matt Hardy, and Christian then choked Matt Hardy with his own jacket. So Jack Evans ended up getting back in the ring. He ended up pulling Christian away from Matt Hardy. So that was that. But we are building for this match, Christian and Matt Hardy. It's going to be a good match whenever we see it. So that's that. And then we had MJF. MJF ended up cutting a promo. MJF was talking about how he's dethroned Chris Jericho as the king of AEW. He was like, you'd think you'd throw the towel in and quit when you're bested. But instead, he's turned AEW into his own perverted Looney Tunes. So MJF was like, this is the best that he can come up with? How low exactly is he willing to stoop? So MJF ended up revealing his stipulations for one last match against Jericho. And all he requests is that if he makes it through his stipulations, which MJF said Jericho won't, is that once he beats him, Jericho must leave MJF alone. So then MJF turned his attention to Sammy Guevara. He ended up saying that fans want to see this match because they want to know what the future of AEW is. So MJF ended up saying that after that match, they're going to say Sammy is the future. Because it's going to be clear that MJF is the now. So that was what MJF had to say. And MJF was like, oh, I'm going to embarrass Sammy Guevara tonight. So good promo from MJF. MJF is going to have his match next week against Jericho. If Jericho ends up losing, he has to leave MJF alone forever. So then we had Alex Abrahantes. Alex Abrahantes was with Andrade El Idolo. So Andrade ended up saying that he was ready to go last week. But Matt Sydal ended up interrupting him. So Andrade ended up saying, how about he and Matt Sydal face off in the ring next week at Road Rager in Miami. So I'm really looking forward to seeing Andrade in an AEW ring next week. I think it's going to be a good match, and he's going to do very good in that match against Matt Sydal. So I'm really looking forward to Andrade's AEW in-ring debut. He's going to pull it off really well. The guy is absolutely talented. So even though WWE missed his potential, but he's going to shine in AEW. He's going to have a bright future in AEW, Andrade. So then we had Tony Schiavone. Tony Schiavone was in the ring, and he ended up introducing Kenny Omega versus the AEW World Champion. Don Callis wasn't here tonight, so it was just Omega out there. Omega ended up making up a story about Tony Schiavone asking him how he stays motivated each day. Omega wanted to say that he woke up today feeling like a king. Well, he should wake up feeling like a king. Look how the way they're booking Kenny Omega. He is one of the top guys in pro wrestling right now. He's one of the best wrestlers in the world right now. With him being the AAA Mega Champion, the Impact Champion, and the AEW World Champion. Although there are talks about Kenny Omega dropping the Impact World the Impact Championship. But Omega wants to say that he beat the toughest guy in AEW, the greatest high flyer in AEW, the greatest athlete, the top merch seller, and the young up-and-comer. He wanted to say that with no one left, he was going to take some time off. But he has plenty of titles to defend elsewhere. So then the Dark Order ended up coming out. Evil Uno got on the mic. Evil Uno ended up saying that if he heard Omega right about not having any challengers. So Omega ended up laughing. He wondered, oh, do I get to face 5? So he ended up telling the Dark Order to bounce, since none of them are even close to being ranked high enough to face him. So Evil Uno was like, oh, well, that might be true. But Omega does know someone who does, since he was very good friends with. And we all know who that is. So he was like the number 1 ranked wrestler in AEW. So we got a Hangman chat from the crowd, and we all know it's Hangman Adam Page. So Omega ended up saying that he doesn't think that person would appreciate Evil Uno talking for him, nor does he have the guts to face him. Omega ended up saying that he doesn't think Hangman Adam Page himself thinks he is worthy of holding up the World Championship. So Omega ended up doing his good night and goodbye bit. And then he walked out of the ring. So that was that. But it was a pretty good segment with Kenny Omega and the Dark Order. And hopefully Hangman Adam Page is going to be facing Kenny Omega for the World Championship. Whether that is done at All Out or at Full Gear, it's going to happen. And to me, I think we're going to see Hangman Adam Page versus Kenny Omega for the World Championship at All Out. Maybe. That's my prediction. But that's going to be a good match to see. You know, Hangman Adam Page and Kenny Omega, they were former tag team champions. They were not a legit tag team, though, but they teamed together. You know, they end up holding the World Tag Team titles. So I think Hangman Adam Page is going to be facing Omega for the World Championship. And I think, like I said, it's going to be at All Out maybe. If it's at Full Gear, I wouldn't mind. Give it a stretch build. You know. So then we saw Brian Pillman Jr. Brian Pillman Jr., he was talking about having friends that were like family growing up. And that Griff Garrison is one of them. So he ended up saying that when Miro attacked Garrison, he showed that he's nothing but a bully and a big Bulgarian bitch. So Brian Pillman Jr. throwing shots at Miro there. So, and then we had the match. Miro versus Brian Pillman Jr. for the TNT Championship. This was a pretty decent match here. We had Brian Pillman Jr. coming out first. And then Miro. So the match started off with Miro going for a kick to Brian Pillman Jr. He ended up missing the kick. He took a few chops from Pillman. Miro then ended up tossing Pillman into the corner, started taking more shots. Miro ended up hitting a back body drop to Pillman Jr. and a kick to the chest. Did some forearms to the back of Pillman, punched the face. He ended up dropping Pillman down. Miro was in control of the match. He was working over Pillman. And he ended up delivering a fallaway slam, which sent Pillman to the outside. Miro then maintained control of the match. He delivers some chops to Pillman's chest. Pillman ended up pulling Miro's neck over the top rope to stomp him down. Pillman was throwing some shots, delivered a springboard dropkick, which sent Miro out to the floor. Pillman then landed a dropkick through the ropes. He ended up going all the way down to the floor. Pillman then ended up sending Miro into the barricade. Miro came back and shoved Pillman away. He got back into the ring. So Pillman ended up delivering some thrust kicks to Miro, which Miro ended up catching the third thrust kick, ended up delivering a roundhouse kick. Miro then did a leaping kick to Pillman. He amped himself up to deliver the game over. So Miro ended up locking in the game over. He rolls back with the game over still locked in on Pillman. He put Pillman to sleep. So there you go. Miro ended up winning the match, retaining the TNT Championship. Overall, it was a decent match, but we all knew that Miro was going to win the match and retain the title. I mean, look how they're booking Miro. They're booking him absolutely great as the TNT champion. But Miro's not losing that TNT championship anytime soon. So we went to Hangman and Page. Hangman and Page ended up walking into the Dark Order's hangout, and Page was not too happy with the Dark Order after what Evil Uno said earlier to Kenny Omega. So Page was like, what are they doing challenging Omega on his behalf? So Stu Grayson ended up telling Page that they didn't exactly stop them. Page ended up wondering if the group thinks he's scared to face Kenny Omega. And Colt Cabana, which he hasn't been shown on TV, Colt Cabana ended up saying no way, but he might be afraid of failure. So Alex Reynolds then ended up telling Page that he's waited long enough and that his time is now. So there you go. Page not too happy with the Dark Order going out there and telling Kenny Omega, oh, how about that one friend that you knew? So. And then we went to Taz backstage. He was with Powerhouse, Will Hobbs, and Hook. Taz ended up saying that Ricky Starks, and Brian Cage aren't here, and they have had a tough relationship. Taz ended up saying that it's been tough on the whole group. It's tough on Team Taz. He ended up saying July 14th, it will be Brian Cage defending the FTW Championship against Ricky Starks. So Taz ended up saying sometimes families fight, and they will hopefully figure things out then. So Taz ended up knowing that Starks will be medically cleared by then because Starks ended up having a neck injury. So there you go, July 14th, Brian Cage defending the FTW Championship against Ricky Starks. And Brian Cage will probably go and retain the FTW Championship. I mean, we're getting babyface Brian Cage here. And then we had Nyla Rose and Vickie Guerrero versus Britt Baker and Rebel. And I said this when Vickie Guerrero ended up announcing it, that this match is going to be awful. Because look what we have. We have Vickie Guerrero in the ring. And we have Rebel. Vickie Guerrero, why does she need to be in the ring? She is awful in the ring. And Rebel. Rebel's another one who should stay out of the ring. This match was awful. I was right about this match. This match was fucking awful. So the match started off with Rebel shoving Vickie Guerrero down to the mat. Britt Baker hit Vickie Guerrero, and Vickie Guerrero was able to tag to Nyla Rose. Britt Baker ended up getting Nyla Rose's attention. Rebel ended up locking in a sleeper hold to Nyla Rose. Nyla Rose ended up throwing Rebel to the mat, delivered a big splash and a leg drop and a power slam. Right from there, I'm like, oh yeah, here we go. This match, awful. So Nyla Rose then tagged in Vickie. She ended up heading under the ring to pull out a table to set it up on the outside. So Britt Baker ended up delivering a sling blade to Nyla Rose. Rose ended up trying to go for a beast bomb. Britt Baker ended up reversing it and delivered a kick to Nyla Rose to her face. Britt Baker ended up getting her gloves from Rebel, and she ended up walking into a choke slam from Nyla Rose. So we had Nyla Rose end up draping Britt Baker over the top rope. Nyla Rose went up to the top and hit a big knee to the back to Britt Baker. Went for the cover, which Rebel ended up breaking up the pin. So it looked like that Rebel might have hurt herself. And there was a report that came out that she indeed did get hurt. And when I saw that, I'm like, after she injured herself here, please, Rebel, stay out of the ring. Please. So Nyla Rose decided to tag in Vickie Guerrero to finish off the match. Britt Baker then ends up getting the lockjaw on Vickie Guerrero. Vickie Guerrero ended up tapping out. So there you go. Britt Baker and Rebel end up winning the match. Post-match, Nyla Rose got back into the ring. She delivered a beast bomb on Britt Baker. She then rolled Britt Baker over to the apron near the table that was set out on the floor. So Nyla Rose then picked up Britt Baker and she powerbombed Britt Baker through the table. So that was that. But overall, this match was awful. And I was right about it. I said it when Vickie Guerrero announced it, when she was like, oh, it's going to be Nyla Rose and her versus Britt Baker and Rebel. I'm like, okay. The only ones who are going to be decent in this match are Britt Baker and Nyla Rose. The other two, yeah, okay. So then we had the matches that we're going to see next week on Dynamite from Florida, from Miami, Florida. It's going to be Road Rager. These are the matches that are taking place at Road Rager. It's shaping up to be a good show. We have QT Marshall versus Cody Rhodes. It's going to be a South Beach strap match. That's going to be better than what we saw on Monday Night Raw with Jackson Ryker and Elias, which that match went 10 minutes, and it was awful. QT Marshall and Cody Rhodes will deliver. So MJF is going to announce stipulations for Chris Jericho to get through to have a match with him. So if they have a match and Jericho loses, of course he has to leave MJF alone forever. And we're going to have the debut of Andrade El Idolo in a AEW ring. He's going to be versus Matt Sydal. So I'm looking forward to Andrade in the ring. So we're going to have the Young Bucks versus Penta, El Zero Miedo, and Eddie Kingston. So we're going to be having the tag team title match next week. So the titles are going to be on the line. And then we're going to have Jake Hager, Santana, and Ortiz versus Wardlow and FTR. And Conan is going to be alongside Jake Hager, Santana, and Ortiz. While Tully Blanchard, of course, is going to be with Wardlow and FTR. That is going to be a good match there. And then we're going to have Chris Statlander, the Alien, and Orange Cassidy versus the Bunny and the Blade. So I think Chris Statlander and Orange Cassidy are going to come out the winners of that match. So then we had Jake Hager and Santana Ortiz. They were hyping up the six-man tag that we're going to see next week. Hager ended up saying that he almost respected Wardlow when he came into his world of MMA, and that MJF ruined that, and that he punched Dean Malenko. Santana ended up saying that they are going to kick FTR's ass next week. And if they have their dog, which they're referring to Tully Blanchard, in their corner, they are going to bring their own, which of course is Conan. So that's going to be that. Hyped up for that match next week. So then we had the main event. MJF versus Sammy Guevara. This was a great match. This was a great main event here. Really enjoyed this match with them. And both of these guys gave it all they got. MJF started off the match. He ended up slipping out of the ring to stall. Guevara ended up doing some taunting in the ring to MJF. MJF got back into the ring. He ended up avoiding Sammy Guevara. He was just strutting around. So Sammy Guevara was mimicking MJF. So Guevara was using his agility to counter MJF, but MJF ended up throat chopping Guevara. Guevara then did a side knee strike. He was looking for the GTH, but MJF ended up catching it. There was a couple of pin attempts. MJF was grounded by Sammy Guevara. Sammy Guevara was looking to go for a move off the top, but MJF ended up moving out to the floor. Sammy Guevara was looking to fly off the top again, but MJF ended up just walking away. So MJF was back in the ring because he went out to the floor. So he went back into the ring. Guevara ended up delivering a double springboard cutter to MJF and a jackknife pin, which MJF ended up kicking out at 2. So Guevara ended up getting his legs swept out from under him by MJF, and both of them end up on the floor. MJF ended up flipping Guevara into the barricade. He was continuing to beat up Guevara on the floor. Sammy then ended up hitting a back body drop to MJF on the floor. Both guys went back into the ring. Sammy Guevara was looking to go for a springboard, but MJF ended up hitting a Legion Bomb reversal for a 2 count, which Sammy ended up kicking out at 2. So Sammy was back up. He ends up hitting a second rope Spanish Fly and a Canadian Destroyer, which looked awesome. And he went for the cover, which MJF ended up kicking out at 2. And there was a point in the match which to me was the highlight. One of the highlights of the match was Sammy Guevara ends up going to the top rope because MJF ended up going to the barricade. He was in the crowd. So Sammy Guevara ended up going to the top rope. And Guevara ended up flipping over the barricade right into MJF. So that was the highlight point of the match, which I thought was awesome. So we had MJF end up hitting a second rope pile driver to Sammy Guevara. He went for the pin, which Guevara ended up kicking out at 2. So Guevara was looking to go for the 630 senton, and MJF was pleading. He was begging Sammy Guevara not to hit the 630 senton. But Sammy Guevara ended up hitting him anyways. He went for the cover, which MJF kicked out at 2. And the crowd was really into this match. I mean, they were standing for this match, which you know that they got the fans' attention. So we had Shawn Spears heading out to the ring. Jericho ended up going to cut him off. So Jericho left the commentary table to cut off Shawn Spears. And Wardlow came out of nowhere. Wardlow ended up attacking Jericho. He ended up beating up Jericho near the crowd. So Wardlow ended up distracting the referee. He was throwing Jericho down to the floor. Shawn Spears ends up getting the chair. Spears ends up whacking Guevara with the chair. So Sammy end up getting his hands up to block the chair shot because Spears end up trying to hit Guevara in the head with the chair. So that's when Guevara end up getting his hands up like that to block the headshot. So MJF end up making his way over. He went for the cover, and there you go. MJF ended up winning the match, with thanks to help from Shawn Spears and Wardlow. So post-match, we saw Shawn Spears and Wardlow. They were helping MJF up, and he was celebrating, and that was that. But MJF, it just proves that he can't beat Sammy Guevara unless he has Shawn Spears and Wardlow doing his dirty work for him. So, but this is not the last time we're probably going to see MJF and Sammy Guevara. I think they're actually going to have another match together. So this is not the last time. And then Dynamite went off the air. We saw clips of Dynamite, clips from the pandemic era in the Daily's Place. It was a well put together video package of these clips. And the fans, really loved it. They were cheering. And with that video package, you could tell that they really do care about the fans, which I like. And then Jim Ross makes a botch, and instead of him saying AEW Dynamite, he said WWE Dynamite. And I'm like, wow. JR, he's still thinking he's working for Vince here. But JR, he's one of the great commentary guys in professional wrestling. Grew up listening to his voice, with him and Jerry the King Lawler on Monday Night Raw. They were the voices of my childhood, both JR and Jerry the King Lawler. So they were a good team together. But that was how Dynamite went off the air tonight. But overall, Dynamite was a good show, and I really enjoyed it. Aside from that awful women's match with Britt Baker and Rebel versus Nyla Rose and Vickie Guerrero, it was a good show tonight. But anyways, that's it for my review of AEW Dynamite. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all later.